They were cleared to land, runway lights glowing in the distance, when the control tower responded with a voice that should not exist, a voice that belonged to a man who died 3 years ago. Captain Sarah Chen and her co-pilot heard it, the passengers heard it, and the recording captured every impossible word. This is the story of Flight 227, the night that shattered everything we thought we knew about life, death, and the voices that guide us home. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Sarah Chen checked her instruments for the 3rd time in 2 minutes. Everything looked normal. The Boeing 737 hummed steadily beneath her, carrying 143 passengers from Seattle to San Francisco. It was a routine flight, the kind she had flown hundreds of times before. The night sky stretched endlessly around them, stars piercing through the darkness like tiny holes in black fabric. Her co-pilot, Marcus Webb, sat beside her, reviewing the approach checklist. They were 20 minutes from landing. She reached for her coffee, now cold, and took a sip anyway. The cabin behind them was quiet. Most passengers were asleep or watching movies on their screens. A few read books under the soft overhead lights. Everything was as it should be. Everything was perfectly, completely normal. But Sarah felt something she could not name, a tightness in her chest, a whisper at the edge of her thoughts. She pushed it away. 15 years of flying had taught her to trust her instruments, not her feelings. Marcus looked over at her and smiled. He was young, only 28, with barely 2,000 flight hours under his belt. But he was good, careful, attentive, the kind of co-pilot every captain wanted. They had flown together twice before, and both times had gone smoothly. No drama, no emergencies, no surprises. Just the steady rhythm of altitude, speed, and destination. Just the comfortable silence of 2 professionals doing their job well. Sarah pressed the radio button. San Francisco approach control. This is Alaska Airlines Flight 227. We are descending through 12,000 feet. The radio crackled. Flight 227, San Francisco approach. We have you on radar. Descend and maintain 8,000 feet. Expect runway 28 left. Copy that, Sarah replied. Descending to 8,000. Runway 28 left dot. Marcus adjusted the altitude selector. The plane began its gentle descent. Below them, the lights of the Bay Area started to emerge from the darkness. San Francisco sprawled like a glowing circuit board, streets and buildings forming intricate patterns of light. The Golden Gate Bridge stretched across the water, its cables illuminated against the black ocean. Beautiful, Marcus said quietly. I never get tired of this view. Sarah nodded but said nothing. That feeling was still there, growing. She checked the weather report again. Clear skies, light winds, visibility 10 miles, perfect conditions. So why did her hands feel cold? Why did the air in the cockpit suddenly seem too thin? They descended through 10,000 feet, 9,000, 8,000. The plane leveled off. Sarah looked at the navigation display. They were right on course, exactly where they needed to be. The runway was 15 miles ahead. She could see the airport now, a cluster of lights distinct from the city around it. Marcus ran through the landing checklist. Flaps, landing gear, auto-braked. Everything was ready. Flight 227, San Francisco approach. Turn left, heading to 70. Descend and maintain 5,000 feet. You are number 2 for landing, Sarah repeated the instructions. Left 2270. Down to 5000. Number 2. But as she spoke, something caught her attention. The voice on the radio. It was different. Not the same controller who had been guiding them. This voice was deeper, rougher, and familiar in a way that made her skin prickle. She glanced at Marcus. He was focused on the descent, adjusting the controls, watching the instruments. He had not noticed. They turned left. The city rotated beneath them. 5,000 feet. 4 miles from the runway. Another plane was ahead of them, already on final approach. Sarah watched its lights descending toward the runway. Everything was proceeding normally. She told herself to relax, to breathe. But her heart was beating faster now, harder. Flight 227. You are cleared for the visual approach. Runway 28 left. Contact the tower on 120.5. Sarah wrote down the frequency. Switching to tower, she said. Then she changed the radio. San Francisco Tower, Alaska 227 with you. Visual approach, runway 28 left. Silence, 3 seconds, 5, 10. Sarah frowned. She pressed the button again. San Francisco Tower, Alaska 227, do you copy? More silence. Marcus looked over at her, concern crossing his face. They were 3 miles from the runway now, descending through 4,000 feet. They needed clearance to land. Sarah tried again. Tower, this is Alaska 227. How do you read? And then the radio crackled to life. Flight 227, San Francisco Tower. You are cleared to land, runway 28 left. Wind to 90 at 7 knots. Sarah froze. Her hand stopped halfway to the landing gear lever. Her breath caught in her throat, because she knew that voice. She knew it like she knew her own name, like she knew the sound of rain on windows or the feeling of sunlight on her face. It was impossible. Completely, utterly impossible. But there was no mistaking it. Marcus, she whispered. Did you hear that? He looked at her, confused. Hear what? We are cleared to land. That voice, she could barely form the words. Who was that? Marcus shook his head. The tower controller. Why? Sarah could not answer. Because the voice she had just heard belonged to Captain David Harrison. Her mentor, her friend, the man who had taught her to fly 20 years ago. The man who had believed in her when no one else did. The man who had guided her through her first solo flight, her first night landing, her first emergency. The man who had died 3 years ago in a car accident on Highway 101. She had been at his funeral. She had watched them lower his casket into the ground. She had stood in the rain with 200 other pilots and cried until she had no tears left. Sarah, Marcus said, his voice sharp now. Are you okay? We need to land. She looked at him, then at the instruments. 2 miles from the runway, 3,000 feet. The plane ahead of them had touched down, its lights rolling along the pavement. Everything said they should continue. Everything said this was just her imagination, stress, fatigue playing tricks on her mind. But she had heard that voice, as clearly as she heard Marcus now, as clearly as she heard her own breathing, fast and shallow. She pressed the radio button again, her hand trembling. Tower, this is Flight 227. Can you confirm your last transmission? The radio crackled. Flight 227, you are cleared to land, runway 28 left. Is there a problem? It was him. David's voice, exactly as she remembered it. The slight gravel in his tone, the way he pronounced his vowels, the patience that had always made her feel safe, even in the worst situations. "Sarah, you are going to be fine," he used to say. "Trust yourself. Trust your training." "I am right here with you, Sarah," Marcus said loudly. "What is going on?" She could not speak, could not move. The runway was 1 mile away now. 2,000 feet. They needed to decide. Land or go around. Continue or abort. She looked at the instruments again. Everything was normal. Airspeed correct. Altitude correct. Configuration correct. But nothing about this was normal. "Nothing. Go around," she said suddenly. "We are going around." "What?" Marcus stared at her. "Why? Just do it." Sarah pushed the throttles forward. The engines roared to life. The plane began to climb. "Go around," she said into the radio. "Alaska 227 is going around." Silence. Then David's voice again. "Flight 227, say reason for go-around." Sarah closed her eyes. "Medical emergency in the cockpit," she lied. "We need vectors for another approach." "Roger, Flight 227. Climb and maintain 3,000 feet. Turn right heading 360. Are you declaring an emergency?" "Negative," Sarah said. "Just need a moment." Marcus was looking at her like she had lost her mind. Maybe she had. Maybe this was a breakdown. Maybe 15 years of stress and long hours and sleeping in different cities every night had finally broken something inside her. But she had heard that voice. She knew she had. They climbed away from the airport. The runway lights fell behind them. Sarah flew the plane mechanically, following the controller's instructions, while her mind raced. This was not possible. David was dead. She had seen his body. She had touched his cold hand at the viewing. She had heard the doctor explain how the crash had killed him instantly, how he had not suffered. Dead people did not talk on radios. Dead people did not clear planes to land unless she was losing her mind, unless the stress had finally caught up with her, unless this whole thing was some kind of hallucination, some break from reality. She had heard of pilots experiencing things like this. Fatigue-induced psychosis, sleep deprivation causing auditory hallucinations. It happened. It was rare, but it happened. "Sarah," Marcus said carefully, "talk to me. What just happened?" She looked at him. "I know this sounds crazy," she said slowly, "but that voice on the radio, the tower controller, that was Captain David Harrison." Marcus blinked. "Who?" "He was my instructor. My mentor." She swallowed hard. "He died 3 years ago." The cockpit was silent except for the hum of the engines. Marcus stared at her. Then he reached for the radio. "Tower, this is the first officer of Alaska 227. Can you state your name for the record?" The radio crackled. "This is San Francisco Tower, position 2. Controller name is Kevin Martinez." Marcus looked at Sarah. Not David Harrison. Kevin Martinez. He spoke gently, like he was talking to someone on the edge of something dangerous. "Sarah, I think you are exhausted. When was the last time you had a full night of sleep?" She shook her head. "You do not understand." That was his voice. I would know it anywhere. "Flight 227, the radio said. David's voice again. "Turn left heading 300. Descend and maintain 2,500 feet. Are you ready to try the approach again? Sarah grabbed the radio. David, she said. David, is that you? Marcus reached for her hand. Sarah, stop. You are talking to Kevin Martinez. You are hearing things that are not there. But the voice came back. Sarah, I am here. I am right here with you. You can do this. Trust yourself. Tears burned in her eyes. How is this happening? She whispered, How? You know how, David's voice said softly. You have always known. You just did not want to believe it, and suddenly she did know. The tightness in her chest, the cold in her hands, the feeling that something was wrong. She had felt this before. 3 years ago, the day David died. She had been flying that day, too, on a different route, and halfway through the flight she had felt it. A heaviness, a certainty that something terrible had happened. She had landed and checked her phone and seen the messages. The accident, the ambulance, the hospital. David Harrison had died at 2:47 in the afternoon. The exact moment she had felt that weight settle over her heart. Sarah, Marcus said urgently, we need to land this plane. 143 people are depending on us. Whatever you think you are hearing, we need to focus. She looked at him, then at the instruments, then at the lights of San Francisco below. He was right. She was the captain. She had a responsibility. Hallucination or not, ghost or not, impossible or not, she had a job to do. She wiped her eyes. Okay, she said. Okay, let us do this. Flight 227, David's voice said. You are cleared for the visual approach. Runway 28 left. Wind 280 at 6 knots. You are going to be fine, Sarah, I promise. She took a deep breath. Cleared to land. Runway 28 left, she replied. Alaska 227. They turned toward the airport. The runway appeared ahead of them, a long strip of lights cutting through the darkness. Sarah extended the landing gear, the flaps. She slowed the plane to approach speed. Everything was by the book now. Everything was exactly as it should be. Marcus watched her carefully, ready to take over if needed. But Sarah's hands were steady. Her mind was clear. 1,000 feet. 500. The runway rushed up to meet them. Sarah pulled back on the controls. The wheels kissed the pavement. Smooth, perfect. They were down. They rolled along the runway, slowing, turning off at the taxiway. Safe. Everyone safe. Flight 227, David's voice said. Nice landing. Contact ground on 121.8. And Sarah, take care of yourself. I will always be watching over you. She sat there for a long moment, her hands still on the controls. Then she pressed the radio button one last time. Thank you, David, she whispered. I miss you. No response. Just the static of the radio. Marcus was already contacting ground control, getting taxi instructions to the gate. A different voice answered him. Professional, efficient. Kevin Martinez. Not David Harrison. Sarah sat back in her seat and closed her eyes. Had it been real? Had David somehow reached across whatever separates the living from the dead to guide her home one last time? Or had her exhausted mind simply created the voice she needed to hear in a moment of panic? She would never know for sure. But when they parked at the gate and shut down the engines, Sarah pulled out her phone. She found the recording from the cockpit voice recorder. Every word spoken in the cockpit was recorded. Every radio transmission, everything. She scrolled through the file, found the approach, and played it back. Marcus leaned over to listen. Flight 227, San Francisco Tower. You are cleared to land. Runway 28 left. Wind to 90 at 7 knots. It was not David's voice. It was Kevin Martinez. Young, efficient, professional. Nothing like David at all. Sarah played it again. And again. The same voice every time. Not David. Never David. Just her mind, creating what she needed to hear. But then why did she feel him still? Why did the air in the cockpit still carry that sense of presence, of someone watching over her with love and pride? Why did her heart feel lighter than it had in 3 years? Marcus looked at her. You okay? He asked quietly. She nodded. Yes, I am okay. She smiled. I think I just needed to hear an old friend. The passengers filed out, oblivious to what had happened. Sarah stood at the cockpit door, thanking them for flying, smiling at their children, answering questions about the flight. Normal, everything normal. But as the last passenger left, an elderly woman stopped and looked at Sarah with eyes that seemed to see too much. You had someone with you today, the woman said. Someone who loved you very much. Sarah froze. What? I could feel it, the woman continued. The whole flight. Someone watching over this plane. Someone making sure we all got home safe. She patted Sarah's hand. You are very blessed, dear. Very blessed indeed. Then she walked away, disappearing into the terminal, leaving Sarah standing there with tears in her eyes again. That night, Sarah could not sleep. She lay in her hotel room, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The voice, the landing, the recording, the old woman. She pulled out her phone and searched for David Harrison's obituary. There was his picture, smiling, confident. The best pilot she had ever known. Gone, but maybe not gone. Maybe still there, somehow, in the spaces between radio static and the hum of engines. Maybe still there, watching over the pilots he had trained, making sure they got home safe. She would never tell anyone the full truth of what happened that night. How could she? They would ground her, send her for psychological evaluation, end her career, so she would keep it to herself. A secret, a gift, a reminder that some bonds go deeper than life and death, that love does not end when the heart stops beating, that the voices of those we have lost might still reach us when we need them most. Sarah closed her eyes and whispered into the darkness, Thank you, David, for everything, for teaching me, for believing in me, for being there when I needed you. And somewhere, in the space between sleep and waking, she thought she heard him whisper back, Always, Sarah, always. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.